Hello, my name is Dr. Greg Smith, and we are in for a real great semester. The class is Basic Old Testament Survey 2, and this is a dashboard in Blackboard. And as a function of registering as a new student, and by the time you found this screen, you've already logged into Blackboard and found our course. And for both the residency and online students, the course design is really exactly the same. Everybody does the same assignments, and I'm going to explain the class right now for both groups, even though you see the I section here. The one thing that you want to make sure that you do on a regular basis is check the announcements, which is the first thing that you see when you log in. The newest announcement will always be at the top, and the way I do the class is every time I post an announcement, I also send an email to you. And if you're a new student on campus, you're aware that you have received an Office 365 account, which is kind of a cloud-based system. Returning students can get themselves set up with the new email system that we'll be using this semester. And just so you know, if you've been around a while, your old e-learning email address will slowly fade off into the distance. Office 365 is where it's at. So you'll be managing that inbox when you get that account set up and monitoring the notifications from me, your professor, as well as all of your other professors on campus. I've posted the syllabus here for the class, and let me go to the syllabus now and just give you a quick overview of the class, and we'll talk about what the assignments will be as well as the capstone assignment for the semester. My office is in Fleming 113. If you have the need to stop by and see me, and my administrative assistant is Emily Jones, and she's a very, very wonderful, nice person. You can always stop by for a cup of coffee and visit anytime. I'm in Fleming 113. We're going to cover in Old Testament Survey 2 the wisdom and the prophetic books. That means Wisdom 5, Job through Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon, as well as all of the prophets. And we'll talk more about how we're going to handle the prophets and how I organize them, but that's more to come. We'll just go through the student learning outcomes. The required textbook, it's the same one if you had me in the fall. We're continuing to use this spring. The reading assignments will come primarily out of this book, Survey of the Old Testament. I talk about class attendance for residency students and the whole policy there, and for online learners. The thing that I'm going to be doing this spring semester is basically doing Adobe Connect and recording all of my live class sessions. So really, class attendance is almost a moot point. Not that you don't come to class, but even if you're a Monday student, that is a residency student, and you miss my class, I'm still requiring you to watch the recorded lecture and not fall behind in the class. That'll be your responsibility so that you get all the content that we cover in class. For online students, viewing the lecture and the interaction of students and my interaction with the students in the live Adobe session, where I talk through the PowerPoints and the discussion, and you can see the chat box and everybody's conversation that's going on. That's a requirement, and that's your attendance requirement each week. The knowledge tests, this is a kind of an online test, a pre-test and a post-test. So what I'm asking you to do, and this is a requirement of the School of Theology, and it associates with our accreditation and assessment. So go in and there, it's not going to affect your grade. It just tests you with your basic knowledge going into the class, how much you know about the wisdom and the prophetic books. So go through, take that test, do your best job, and then at the end of the semester you'll be doing essentially the same thing. So that's what that is. Let's talk about weekly assignments. I've got a class schedule that will tell you about reading for each week. I would prefer that you do all your reading before you come to class, or in the case of an online student, to do their reading before they view the recorded lecture. There'll be a weekly assignment, a little different than fall. If you had me in the fall, the Theological Journal. The catcher's mitt for this will not be a journal in Blackboard, but a Turnitin portal in Blackboard. I'll show you what those look like here in just a minute. What you'll do in a theological journal is you're going to submit a Word document to a Turnitin portal. I'm not looking at precise formatting. It would be nice if it was double-spaced just for the ease of reading. And you'll fill out a page, probably no longer than a page and a half. 2 meaty paragraphs is what I'm going after. The first paragraph is you're going to synthesize what you've read and what we discussed in lecture, and you'll formalize in your own words the theological big idea or big ideas of each of the books that we've covered. We'll talk about how that looks like. There'll be for example, the first week we're covering some background information, but then really the meat and potatoes is the book of Job. And your theological high point entry will be in a Turnitin assignment called Job. It's very clear. There will be no confusion on that this semester. I guess there was some confusion about that last semester, but I'm making it very easy, and that's what you'll submit. All right, and you'll give on your page a title that'll have the word Job. Some of the Turnitin assignments each week will cover multiple books, and then you'll have a single Word document that'll have the titles, let's say, Nahum, Habakkuk, and Ezekiel, for example. That might be one assignment, and you'll cover all 3 of those books. And essentially, maybe, we'll talk about multiple book entries here in just a little bit. So I talk about that a little bit, and each week's worth of journal will be worth 20 points. Late journals will not be graded. And that's going to be a function of how the Turnitin portal is timed. So each weekly journal must be submitted by the deadline, which is midnight on the Friday at the end of the Friday of the week of that particular class. So every Friday at midnight there'll be a journal that'll be due. It's your responsibility to get that in before the clock of midnight. That's I'm just making it easy so you procrastinators can do that. If you work at night, it's a little easier for you that way as well. If you miss a journal, it's your responsibility to continue to move on to the next journal. You're not behind, you just have to do the next one. So you've missed that week's journal, you've missed those points, but you'll have a chance to essentially catch up by just moving on to the next week. That's what you do. Alright, so that's going to be, as you can see, a pretty big chunk of change as we progress through the semester. And it's just a weekly assignment of kind of synthesizing what we've learned through our reading, what we've discussed in class, and putting it in your own words, which helps you learn it a little better, and then capture it in a Word document submitted to Turnitin. So that'll be a weekly routine. And now we talk about the Capstone assignment. Old Testament Survey 2 has a Capstone assignment, which is called a research project. Now, this is something that some of you might be familiar with already. It kind of overlaps with our campus-wide emphasis on research-based writing, which associates with something called the QEP. But in Old Testament Survey 2, you're going to have the unique experience as a student. And this is the Capstone assignment, because I'm not necessarily giving you a final exam, but the research project is something that we'll be whittling away at in bite-sized chunks throughout the semester. According to the, I'll have to show that to you in just in a little bit here, but in Blackboard, it's all directed through Blackboard. There'll be assignments that'll be due periodically throughout the semester, where beginning with the practice of entering a conversation and narrowing your topic, you'll be submitting that to a Blackboard journal, and there'll be a coach. Coach will be a PhD student in the Old Testament, and they're going to help you every step along the way in giving you feedback and evaluation so that you can move through each step and improve. And you're going to work on your sources, submit an annotated bibliography, and here's the deadlines for each of these assignments. You're going to generate a thesis statement or a central claim based on your topic. You're going to map out your paper with argumentation, and you're going to submit what's called an argumentation template. Some of you might be familiar with that. Hint, hint. And then finally, you're going to fill out your paper, Mechanics of Writing, and you're going to submit an edited draft to a Turnitin portal by April 11th. And then you'll get coach feedback on that, and by the end of the semester, more to come, you'll correct and make some corrections to that edited draft and turn your final draft in for me, the professor. This will be all coach driven, all of these things above, but this one down here is yours truly, and I'll assign the final points. So you'll get 50 points for all of these assignments, and they're given and awarded based on completion by the deadline. You'll get full credit on each of these items for getting them in on time by the deadline posted. Okay, so it's important that you keep up with that so you don't miss these points. And then the final submission will be here, and I'll give you the deadline TBA here. That'll be submitted near the end of the semester, probably no later than the end of final exam week. So now I'm back in Blackboard, and I'd like to show you just kind of a little bit of a tour just to show you Blackboard and how I'm designing the class. Here's the pre-test, post-test that I mentioned. We're at the Announcements tab here, and your navigation is over here. The theological journals have already been put in to Blackboard, and you can see that it's pretty clear. And you, sorry, I have to clear my throat here. I forgot to show you the course schedule. This should be 2014. But here's the week of, so this is always on a Monday, and then here I say by the Friday of that week, by midnight, what is due. So Journal 1, and you can see over here we've got some reading that we're doing, background material, and then we have the reading that corresponds with the book of Job. I don't give page numbers when we have a book mentioned, book of the Bible mentioned, because you can go find and read that chapter yourself based on finding the pages for the book of Job. So essentially the weekly routine will be read, and then either go to class and view or listen to the engaging class lecture, or watch the lecture, tape delay, and then you'll do your journal. So let's look at where the journals are warehoused in Blackboard. So if I was ready to post my first journal, journal number 1, for the book of Job, you'll go to Theological Journals, and then you'll go to Job, and then you'll click View and Complete. And that will allow you to upload your Word document that has your summary answer for the book of Job. Now remember, I said that there's each book will have essentially 2 paragraphs that you'll write. In the book of Job, the first paragraph will be a summary of the theological high point, and then sometimes for the second paragraph, I'm going to add an extra. Actually, for all of them, you'll have to look in the Turnitin field here and read this question. And in the second paragraph, or the final paragraph of your journal that you submit, that's the question I want you to do a little thinking on. Somewhat applicational, but it's a question that kind of brings together a lot of what that you've read and heard in class. Sometimes these questions will come right out of class discussion, just to keep you honest. But anyway, we're looking at just a paragraph on that as well, and then you're done, and then you can submit it and upload it as a Word document to this submission portal by the deadline, which is when? Midnight on Friday. So always looking at Friday midnight as the submission deadline. What happens if you miss a deadline? You miss a deadline, you lose the points, but you move on to the next week and get yourself caught up. That's what we do. Some of you may have, because you're missionaries overseas, and we've talked about this, like for example from the fall semester. Let's say you're in eastern Mongolia at the top of a mountain and you're out of internet range for 2 weeks. If you're in that situation, I am praying for you, and I will give you grace and let you catch up when you get back. Just give me a heads up or an email and let me know what your situation is, and we'll work with you on that. I'll just let the grader know, or myself, depending on who's looking at these for that week, to not take off points, but we'll let you get caught up in a different way. All right, thanks. Some of you are working ahead a little bit, and you can see I don't have all of my deep thought questions set up, but you can still go ahead and work on your separate documents. So then we're going to cover the rest of the wisdom books, for example, in the second week, and we'll talk about that, and then move on to the prophets and work our way through in bite-sized chunks, and then we get to the end of the semester. So that's basically what we're doing with the theological journal assignment, and it's a weekly assignment, and we're working through all of the material again in bite-sized chunks. Now the research paper, the bite-sized chunk assignments that we mentioned briefly before, all of these that are given assignments, I'm going to talk to you about those in a separate video that I'll create, and an instructional video where I'll explain that and give you an idea what we're looking for there. But this is just something that you'll do. There's some self-learning videos and tutorials you'll watch, and then you'll essentially complete the assignment, submit it in the appropriate fashion, and then move on. So it's something that we'll be working on. Essentially, by the end of the semester, you'll have written an 8 to 10 page research paper with bibliographic resources, books and journals that you found and used and incorporated, all driven by a thesis statement that you're essentially arguing for. And we'll talk more about that in another video. I just didn't want this one to be too long. So again, no final exam, which is good news, but we are going to be working on that capstone assignment. And then we'll do a good job on that and finish the class, and having learned a tremendous amount with regards to the prophets, which beware, they have a tendency to get under your skin. Some of them are extremely hazardous with regards to your spiritual health and vitality. So that's where we're going. Put your safety cap on, and we'll get at it. So I'm looking forward to class and another good semester.